Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into the Overreaction official post-game show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe. My name is Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired, alongside my co-host, Jerry Ostrowski, former Buffalo Bill. Jerry Ostrowski, you can find him on Twitter at Ostrowski_Big O. And we are so excited to have you guys with us. Please do us a favor. Please subscribe, whatever platform you are consuming this video on, whether live with us right now on YouTube, Facebook, or X, Twitter. Please do us a favor if you can, if you have the ability, please subscribe. Also, if you are listening to this in podcast form in post on Monday, Tuesday, Victory Monday, officially, Jerry. Victory Monday. Victory Monday. Please subscribe. Help us get our numbers up. And if you could be so kind, share. I've had a couple people recently, Jerry, say, "Oh, I was telling my friend or my blah 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 about you. Now they love your show." And John does it. John works the room. Wherever John is, John's working the room. But I've actually had some people tell me that they've shared our podcast or our video stuff, and the person was like, "Thanks for turning me on to those guys." So, but anyways, Jerry, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate people that are pushing the show. We enjoy doing it. We enjoy everybody out there, listeners, people that watch. We appreciate all the support. So thanks as always as we make a push to 2,000 here before the season starts. But we did have a preseason game on Saturday night.
Yes, we did.
And we got some things to talk about, Joe.
We did. The Buffalo Bills go into Pittsburgh and they defeat the Steelers in a preseason game. And we're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, maybe some players. As everybody saw on the graphic, I had to have Joe Andreessen as the biggest picture, the legend of Joe Andreessen.
Is there a better story in football, or could there be a better story in Buffalo Bills history than what's going on with him? I mean, obviously, one preseason game does not make the career. You will see more of him next week. But, man, what an awesome deal, dude. And his family was there. Friends were there. I mean, so fired up for that kid. It was awesome.
Yeah, somebody on one of the Facebook groups, and Greg Thompson actually pulled it into Twitter. They said that he's a young Luke Kuechly.
Well,
pause.
Right. Time out. Time out. I think Luke Kuechly was like a top 20 first-round pick, potential Hall of Famer. We're talking about my brother from Lancaster right now. I mean, shout out Lancaster. I used to live there. Off of William Street boys.
Nice.
But no, it's cool. I mean, it's good to see, and it just shows that even though some guys are not drafted, they're still really, really good football players. And that's why myself and John get so defensive when people drop the derogatory terms about kids like that, because you just don't understand. I mean, this guy's still on a roster of an NFL team. There's only 32 of them in the world, man. It's a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to come back to Joe Andreessen. We're going to talk about him, and I've got some questions specifically for you on that. But we're also going to talk about just kind of like overarching just thoughts on the game in general. Last week, my comment was much like it is every year, as I've been doing these things for a long time. If it was, as preseason games go, it was one, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a preseason game.
Right. I mean, it was a preseason game, and not only was it the first preseason game, it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's about as bad of a start time as you get. I mean, it was nice to see him play at night, even on the road. I thought they had a great week in Pittsburgh. They were able to get the joint practice done without a bunch of ridiculousness and without a bunch of fake bravado and, how hard am I? I'm going to start fights and push late. I mean, obviously both head coaches really well respected, not only in the league, but by their teams, and they listened to the message. I mean, McDermott flat out told the guys, if you fight, you're out of practice. Yeah. So I was really happy with that. And then the game-wise, guys, there's a youth movement going on in Buffalo right now. And I'm just telling you, it shows on the field. I was really happy with this performance on Saturday night, even though the score was 9-3. But when you look at this, game, you look at the energy, you look at the youth movement, great leadership on the field. They knew what they were doing. Big time. It was big time by this team, and there's a big time youth movement going on right now in Buffalo.
Yeah, for sure. We got our first super chat of the evening. And by the way, this is probably one of those shows that lends itself to some interaction from the chat and from the people that are watching us live on YouTube right now. And if you feel so inclined to throw a comment up or a question, please do so. Scott Blakely, our guy with the first super chat, Buffalo Joe, he says, and he doesn't mean me, even though I am Joe and I am from Buffalo. Buffalo Joe and Dreesen, love it. D looked great all around. Not sure what our O will be, but good play by the line. We'll get to that, or maybe I'll address it. I'm not overly concerned as preseason games go. This was one as well. This
right.
was 7 o'clock prime time. Clearly, after last week's 1 o'clock game that you talked about, coach was not happy. And last week in the post game show, I just stressed, he talked about we play winning football. Coach McDermott did. When you put the colors on, when you put that jersey on, there's a standard of which we play. And I said from there's an aspect of, I'm not necessarily sure if he means we play in the preseason to win, and the only object is to win the game. Clearly, they're not doing the things in a preseason game that you do in the regular season. So sometimes it's about winning your assignment. Sometimes it's about winning your battle. Sometimes it's about winning the play. Sometimes it's a winning of. There's just many things that go into that ball. All that to say this, the team clearly got the message this week, specifically the defense very much got the message that we are here to play football and there's a standard. And it was great to even see the guys on the sidelines kind of lose minds like they used to do, because they didn't do that last week.
No, there's three things that players can control, and this is what McDermott was talking about. The first thing is your attitude, okay?
Yeah.
The energy and the body language with which you bring onto the field. It's really hard to do that in preseason, but they did that on Saturday night. The second thing is the effort. That's another thing that a player can control. Effort was tremendous. I thought they played extremely hard. They got after it, and they did those things. The third thing is toughness. That goes along with physicality. Those three things you can control, and that's what McDermott was talking about. They played a very physical football team, and they played a very physical style of football on Saturday night. So those three things, the attitude, the energy, the effort, and the physicality or toughness, that is what McDermott was talking about. Yeah. And yes, it's great to win, but when you bring those things to the field in the preseason and you show that you care and you want to get better, that's what's really more important. And that's what the Bills did Saturday night against Pittsburgh.
Yes. And for me, just kind of overarching thought on this, and there's been a couple people kind of mention it already. Hey, the defense looked great. Not sure what we're going to get from the offense. I am for me as a fan, as a content creator, I needed to see that response from the defense. I am far more concerned with the defense than I am the offense, even with that response in a preseason game. As preseason games go, it was one. Even in a preseason game, with the response they had, there's still a lot of question marks and concerns as it pertains to linebacker, as it pertains to safety. It was good to see Taylor Rapp play, because he got injured in that joint practice with Pittsburgh. Well, injured, quote unquote, like they pulled him off the field for precautionary reasons. Probably he tweaked something, but he did get in the game and play. Again, it was Pittsburgh. There was probably no game planning by either team necessarily in that game. But I was very much happy with the effort that we saw. Seeing a guy like Joe Andreessen, very happy with Daquan Hardy, which we'll talk about that in a second as well. Obviously, Groot was losing his mind. He literally, you and John have talked about sitting in the film room during the week and like focusing on a play and everybody yucking it up and laughing and having a great time. And I don't know if you want to just expound upon that, but him tossing that left tackle.
Right, and it was a guy that I believe was a first or second round pick, a high round pick from Georgia. I mean, a guy that's a big dude, and Groot's starting to use his length finally. I don't know if this is a product of Von Miller, because you can see some things in a few players that are probably learning a little bit from Von Miller's tutelage. But Groot's finally using his length, and the length gave that dude tons and tons of fits. But to go back real quick, Joe, I want to talk a little bit about the offensive line. There are some things that concern me. I don't think that McGovern is quite yet comfortable. I think he's really good run blocking. I still think he's got some in space issues, not just like on the second level. I think that's where he freaking reigns. I think he's a great second level player. I think he's got some things he needs to work on or just get used to again in the middle, spacing, how do I fit the pass protection and things like that,
Right.
especially when I'm uncovered. Both guards had some big time flaws technique wise. Probably a little more concerned about Edwards than Torrance rather, excuse me. But both had some flaws technique wise. Torrance's issues were when, I don't know if you noticed, they ran quite a bit of pin and pull type stuff with the guard and tackles this game. He had some one-on-one issues there. Edwards got beat clean a couple of times on the backside of zone. So there are some things they need to clean up. I do think as they get going on, they'll continue to get better and better. And by game one, that group will be, pretty solid. I still do worry a little bit about Edwards, but we'll get into it here in a little bit. I think the question is going to be, what cuts do they make in that group? Because there's a few young guys, a few drafted guys that are playing really, really well. Yeah. And you can only have 8 to 9 of them. So who stays and who goes? And we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like the offense, getting back to it, and I want to back up in a second to a point you were just talking about or dancing around. I'm Josh Allen plays football for this football team, and I feel like Curtis Samuel showed me some things, and it was actually Spence last week on the Hump Day Hotline was talking about Curtis Samuel, right? And that's his new favorite player, and he took that screen that they've tried to run to Diggs, they've tried to run it to everybody, and I was like, I've seen that before, and he was like, John Brown, that was the John Brown play, and I was like, you're right, that is like every time they throw that ball to John Brown, he would do exactly what Curtis Samuel did. I'm far more comfortable with the offense than I am the defense. So it was great to see what we saw from the defense in a preseason game. Backing up. You talked about pin and pull. This team with Mitch Morse as the center was a pin and pull team. They've tried to play other styles. They've tried to mix it. They tried to be a little bit hybrid over the years, and they always come back to Sterling Furrow talks about it. They always come back to pin and pull. I guess that's the question that probably nobody's talking about right now, but you of all people have the expertise to talk about it with Connor McGovern now in the center and who they have like fanning out from there. Is this a pin and pull offensive line? Is it a zone scheme offensive line? Like what do you think fits them?
No, pin and pull will be a big part of their offense because like we talked about before, other than that right side of the line, they're really not a move guys from point A to point B group. Gotcha. They're a much more of a lateral zone team. Even on the inside zone, it's a team that gets a lot of movement by their athleticism. And so, yes, I mean, Spencer Brown's moving really, really well. He was the predominant pull guy on a lot of that pin and pull stuff. We all know Dion can run. Yeah. So, yes, I think this is a team that will continue to evolve in that pin and pull scheme. But when it comes down to it, there's still going to be that lateral zone team that they've always been. They'll mix in some dart, which is that one tackle pull that Dion runs pretty prevalent. Yep. They're going to do some things like that. But yeah, I mean, I think the athleticism of the group up front gives that coaching staff the option to do multiple things. And now you got McGovern at center, who probably runs better than Mitch Morse. Yeah. So now you can do even more. So yeah, I would expect to see more pin and pull, but they're still going to be bread and butter. That inside outside zone that kind of looks the same. Aiming points are a little different, and they're more of a lateral group that gets guys moving with body movement as opposed to grabbing guys and moving them from point A to point B.
So Mitch Morse was more of a pass protecting center. He was skilled in the run game, but it wasn't really his forte. Where do you see McGovern? Similar, or do you see McGovern a little more balanced, maybe a little more run focused?
I thought Mitch was fine in the run game. I thought Mitch was great. I mean,
that's just a criticism that writers write about him.
Right, exactly. And snowballs go downhill, and somebody gets a hold of it, and everybody runs with it. But no, I think that really, when you look at this team, okay, when you got Josh Allen behind you, you better make sure your group up front can pass pro, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so yes, these guys are all very good pass pro guys. They're long guys. They got length. Torrance made a ton of stride in the pass pro game last year. Should be fine being a tackle in college, moving inside to guard. I think McGovern is a very, he's longer than Mitch was. Yeah. Mitch was very active and can move, but McGovern moves in a different way. Plus, he's got length. Like I said before, he's got a build of a guy like Kent Hull, as opposed to a build of a guy like me, right? I mean, he's a longer guy. He's going to play leverage game and things like that. Watched a lot of his stuff on second level. He's so good with linebackers. one thing that he's never been great at, and you'll see this maybe against teams that play that head up nose, of having to handle that head up nose and really kind of move him by himself. So
yeah,
that's where I might see some deficiencies. But no, I thought the Bills did good in pass pro. Edwards a little bit soft. I think he'll anchor down. McGovern has a little bit of softness sometimes, but I think a lot of his stuff is just continuing to get used to playing center again. But I did notice this, and I don't know if you noticed this much, Joe, but they did run a lot of pass pro stuff where they kind of moved the pocket a little bit, pulled a guard or tackle into the flat, and got a protector out front, and ran a lot of play action this game as well.
Yeah. I want to bring in a question from Elliot Eisler. Elliot Eisler actually goes back to the Fanatics days in 2019, 2020, watching us and kind of hanging out with us, which is fun. But he said, and this is a question, excuse me, that I'm going to pose to you. With all the depth that we have at offensive line, and you talked about it, like it's going to get interesting because you feel like some of the rookies have some talent. Obviously, we've got guys they brought on, and William Clapp and Lyle Collins and stuff like that. But do you see Bean flipping one of these guys for a late round pick before the season starts? Ben has MO in the past, and he's specifically talking about the dude that we sent to Cleveland, who won't be named just because he's really good. Like we traded a guy that was like, oh, he's on the bubble, and we traded him for like a 5th or a 6th or something like that.
Who is that? I don't remember who that was.
Oh, it's I've lost it. It's right off the top.
Okay.
It's going to show up in the chat here any second. So,
but no, I think he could. I mean, this to me, I think that Grable has really moved forward and shown himself. Now he's got to get bigger in the weight room. That's where he's lacking. But as far as this frame and size and watching him play, I think he's playing really, really well.
Wyatt Teller.
Okay, Wyatt Teller.
Yep,
I was very impressed with Van Pran Granger. Now, granted, he didn't play till the end of the 3rd, start of the 4th, but he's kind of the opposite of McGovern. Mm-hmm. He's a dude that can move dudes on the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Maybe not quite as good on the second level. Okay, so he's a little different. He's a different style of center. I think if you were playing back in the times where you had a head up nose every game in the 70s and 80s,
4-3s or 3-4s rather.
3-4s. You see a guy like Van Pran Granger starting because I think he's much better at the line of scrimmage than he is on second level. But they've got some guys there. Now you've got Anderson who played center. He was the first center off the bench. I think he's fine. Clapp is a guy that can do both. Clapp's kind of a road grader type offensive lineman, a guard that could, that's playing right guard. You've got the tackles out there. So somebody's going to get cut that's a pretty decent football player. I think my question mark right now is, do you risk putting Van Pran Granger on waivers as a 5th round pick? And then if you have a guy like Grable, who I think probably really could benefit from a year on the practice squad, do you risk putting him on waivers with somebody else possibly picking him up? So the young guys are showing really, really good promise. They're your draft picks. Do you not risk them and keep them on the roster and move other dudes?
Yeah.
Or do you take a gamble with somebody?
Yeah, it's all interesting information, and obviously that's why Brandon Beane gets paid the big bucks, is to kind of figure that stuff out, and we'll see how it's a problem we didn't think we had. Right, there's a great deal of in years past, the Bills had one of the deepest rosters, and then this year, like you said, it's a youth movement, and there's been concerns about that depth.
Well, does this make sense? I mean, you want to develop talent on your team for future years, right? And it's almost like the Bills have an abundance of good young players.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to move somebody, but like, to me, the tough cut decisions right now, we talked about the offensive line. I think wide receiver is going to be a tough cut decision.
Yeah, for sure.
There's some guys there I really liked. I thought Shorter did great. And the thing I loved about Shorter was he blocked in the run game, and he's a special teams guy. Yeah. So you got that. Then you got the tight end room. Is Quentin Morris going to be hurt for a while? And we saw Zach Davidson make a really, really good play, and you can see how good he is in the passing game, catching the ball.
Very fluid.
Is there something there? And then the running back room, there's a bunch of guys that can tote the rock.
Yeah, let's transition. We got a couple minutes left here on the Overreaction post-game show, talking Buffalo Bills and Pittsburgh Steelers preseason week 2. Just about players, and we can either throw a list or volley back and forth. I like the volley back and forth kind of idea. For me, I'll start with Daquan Hardy. There's something about my eyes for whatever reason, we're focused on corner. Obviously, watching Kaiir Elam, we know what we've got in Benford. We know what we've got in Douglas, and those guys both played in this game and had plays in this game. Kaiir was in the game. But Daquan Hardy, not only from a return standpoint, he had a couple really good returns. I feel like he probably took that job from KJ Hamler. There might still be a small competition there, but I don't know how you move away from that guy. Obviously, he'll get one more game to find out. But I also liked what I saw he was active as a corner, and he was in on a lot of plays, like attacking passes. He wasn't just laying back like Levi Wallace used to do, or even Dane Jackson. Like that's what they used to ask Levi and Dane to do, is like, just don't let them get past you. Like if he catches it, make the tackle. He was aggressive. I loved what I saw from Daquan Hardy.
No, I agree with you. I thought the special teams played really, really well. There was a few penalties that we could do without. There was a hold. I think there was a pre-snap penalty or two. So those things get cleaned up. But I thought the special teams in general played really, really well. I really like Hardy's aggressiveness as a returner. I don't like the play that he made where he reversed himself out and ran into the end zone to get. Now, if we can get away from that.
Coach Smiley was not happy about that.
Right. If we can get away from that, I'll be happy. But as far as just his aggression as a returner and his willingness to take the ball north-south, if you can get any play out of him at cornerback, which obviously we saw a lot of promise.
Yeah.
He's a guy that you really have to consider making this roster. I think I feel bad for a guy like Andy Isabella. I think he's always going to be, the guy that's just on the cusp.
Yeah.
I don't know about much more than that with him. And I know he got all the returns in the second half, but I still liked Hardy's potential much more than Isabella, who is somebody that we kind of are very familiar with and already know what we have in him.
Yeah, I loved what I saw from Ray Davis. I think Coach has talked about his vision in some of his press conferences in the past, and it was on display in this football game. There was a couple times that he was in traffic and could feel and see the defenders kind of flowing to his right and just just moved it back to the left and got around guys. So very Singletary-esque with a little more burst. I was going to disparage some folks, not intentionally like disparage, but just talking about just kind of in the past. It just felt like it was nice to see a guy with vision. You've got Cook, who's a one cut and go guy, right? Ray Davis is I'm in the mess and I'm going to like move around people, almost like Thurman used to do. Like I could see and feel what's going on, and I'm going to squirt around and get through people.
But we talked about this in shows of past. I like Ray Davis because he runs angry, and he didn't always try to avoid people.
Right.
He'll square his pads up and try to run through contact as well.
Yep.
And he's got that kind of a pinball ability, right? I mean, he's so compact and strong. He can bounce off of contact, and he almost looks for it to utilize it to give himself momentum moving forward on those runs. I'll tell you, man, he's got a chance. He's got a chance to be a really good one. I'm excited about him. Another great draft pick by being in the admin this year.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously, I mean, do we want to go there, Joe Andreessen? Do we want to talk about Buffalo Joe kind of officially?
Yeah, we do.
I mean, there's an aspect of so just so everybody knows, he is not the only University at Buffalo undrafted free agent that is on this roster. Cam Lewis is also a UB alum who came into Buffalo as an undrafted rookie free agent. Obviously, the difference is Joe was a walk-on invite, so it wasn't even a matter of like the draft is over, then they make all their phone calls. That was a rookie mini camp. Hey, we've got a couple extra spots. Would you like to come in? He's making the most of it, which is great. And obviously, he's from Lancaster. He's from Buffalo, but this guy was all over the football field. It was turning national heads how all over the football field he was,
almost to the point where I will say this, and I know, Joe, this might be a little cringy to you, and I really truly believe this. After Terrell Bernard, it's really the only true blue inside and out Mike we have on the roster other than the starter. We got a bunch of linebackers who can do a few things. I was really impressed with Williams. I thought he played really well.
Yep.
He had a couple of plays where he chased ghosts, but other than that, always around the football. And what was funny is if he didn't get there first, Andreessen did, and if Andreessen didn't get there first, Williams did.
Yes.
They were very, very active. People ask, well, why was Andreessen a undrafted free agent? Well, obviously, you're going to go ahead and you said this off the air. You pinpointed his size.
Yeah.
He's basically the same size as Terrell Bernard.
Small.
Yeah. They're pretty much the same. They're smaller linebackers. But you look at Andrews, and he's not slightly built. He's a thick guy. I mean, he's muscular. He's got a good build to him. What he did Saturday night was outstanding. I mean, this is a guy that went from everybody going, yeah, isn't it great? I mean, they give him a chance to be on the local team. And,
do you think he'll get some playing time?
Man, as long as he lives, he can tell his kids that he was on the Buffalo Bills for a preseason.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, people are putting out there, this guy, you can't cut him.
Yeah,
you got to keep him on the team. And it's like
Bobby Boucher.
That's hilarious. Very good, Steve. Very good. But no, it's true. I mean, he plays like Terrell Bernard. He recognizes gaps. He recognizes plays. He gets downhill. That is the type of middle linebacker that thrives in McDermott's style of defense, which now is being called by Bobby Babich. It also gives you the option to play, he can blitz, but then you can blitz Williams and allow Andreessen to clean up. I mean, I was really impressed. Maybe he didn't test the way some of the Terrell Bernard did. He didn't run as well, didn't jump as high, didn't do 225 as many times. But it just goes to show you, and it's so refreshing.
AK Cash has him at 32 on the bench.
Yeah, well, there you go. He's incredibly strong.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you, folks, all you guys that dig through all that information and talk about all the draft picks and all the guys at the P5 schools, and we got to draft guys from Georgia. Guess what? There's really good football players over in Amherst, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And they might not get drafted, but they're good.
Khalil Mack being one of them.
Right. I'm excited for him. I hope he has. I would expect him, if Bernard plays this week. I don't think it's going to be very long, especially with the Milano injury. You're going to see Andreessen a lot again. And if he plays anywhere near like he did this past week, guys.
What stuck out to me about Joe Andreessen were two things. One was a play, which was clearly the one in the flat. So he read his key, took off to his right, met the running back in the backfield, and got stiff-armed in the face and still brought him down. And the Steve Tasker talked about it in the color about, kind of keeping his leverage where it needed to be so that he could pull him down. So that was one. That is a tackle that a lot of pro dudes that have been playing for a long time don't make. Like, the fact that he made it was big. And then the other thing for me, aside from him just being everywhere on the field, it was the fact that this isn't a game that they game plan for. He played against Russell Wilson and he played against Fields, and he was just reacting. There was no thinking going on. He was just like, even in his dropbacks, like, he knew what he was supposed to do and reacted to what he was supposed to do at the snap of the ball. There wasn't a moment where he was delayed. Oh, what am I supposed to do? Which you would expect. This is a kid that played at UB that came in on an invite to rookie camp. He didn't get signed as a UDFA, RFA, after the draft. He got invited in and he was just reacting. And I think that you could probably speak to that as a football player. Reacting is the most important thing.
Right. If you watch him, there's times in this game, if you really slow it down, go to NFL.com or NFL channel or NFL.com, pull up NFL Plus. Preseason games are free. Okay.
Yep.
The all 22 will be out soon. But if you watch him, there'll be times where there's 9 to 10 guys going to the left, and next thing you know, Andreessen is hauling ass to the right because he's reading his keys.
Yeah.
He knows what his keys are. He's clear, a hop step or 2 hops forward, clears his cleats, reads his keys, and goes.
Yep.
That's how Bernard plays. And that, to me, is how a middle linebacker is supposed to play.
Right.
So it's not, if you understand football and you understand keys and schemes, it's amazing what happens. And this kid's a prime example. Does he have the athletic ability to where if he makes a mistake, he can turn, haul ass, and run it down and save that was the old Miami days.
Right.
We took safeties and made them linebackers. Linebackers were defensive ends. Defensive ends were inside guys, and we're just going to outrun everybody. Even if we make a mistake, we'll get the ball on the ground because we can get there because we're athletes.
Right.
But no, I mean, he's a tremendous football player, and I hope to God he makes the team because it'll be the #1 selling jersey in the history of the Buffalo Bills.
And it looks cool in the back of the jersey with all those E's and S's. It's like, how do you spell that name?
Whoever's getting paid for embroidery is going to make an ass load.
Yeah, there was a lot of obviously great things as far as like players to spotlight from this game. We're running short on time, so I want to move on. But you know, you're talking obviously Greg Rousseau played well. There was a lot of good stuff. I was surprised to see Keon Coleman in the third quarter, but clearly that was due to injuries, which is a perfect segue into potential concerns. I was not shy on social media that I'm unsettled just with the backup quarterback situation. And even with that, and I said this to you before we went live, I understand and I get it, right? The Bills don't have $8-10 million to spend on a backup quarterback. We don't have that. So we're going to get what we get, and we're not going to throw a fit. You get what you get, you don't throw a fit. And that's kind of where the Bills are at right now. There's just an aspect of like, is somebody better out there? Is Trubisky hurt, right? So we don't really have any information. Does he have a mild MCL sprain? Is there a tear? What's going on there? A guy like Ryan Tannehill's out there, but he's probably worth $8 to $10 million a year. Like, he's not going to come cheap. So for me, I don't know how you, and all that builds into this question of concern that I have, and I'm gonna lay it at your lap, which is, how do you evaluate wide receivers when the quarterback can't get the ball to them? Are you just evaluating, he was open, that guy was open too, that guy was open, or is it, I mean, what do you do?
You're right, but I don't think that our wideouts that did play had a tremendously great game. I don't know how much we did for him to help him. I don't care to see Coleman running hitch routes. We just let that guy go to Houston, the #1 hitch runner in the NFL the last so many years. You know, and then Coleman, of course, just gator arms the slant across the middle, even though it wasn't that great of a pass. Should have caught it. But as far as Trubisky goes, when you look at backup quarterbacks, you got to know what the hell you're doing. You can't turn the football over, and you got to let your players around you make plays. You make the plays that are there, and you give your team an opportunity to win, especially a team that is playing good defense, right? And to me, anyway, it seems like over the last so many years, whether a starter or a backup, Trubisky struggles with a lot of that or all of it. And the interception was horrible, for lack of better terms. It was a terrible throw. It was indecisive. It was off time. You should have just ate it or run with it. So, yeah, I mean, if you can find a good backup quarterback, I mean, look at Danucci. Danucci was there, 2 to 3 days? And he looked 50 times better than Trubisky. So you can find that guy. You're not looking for a dude that you know, the people that want Tannehill signed. Tannehill's not coming to Buffalo. He's not going to sit behind Josh Allen for $1 million a year. The only way he would do that is if nobody else wants him, which you have to figure at some point somebody's going to take a chance on him. So there's guys out there that you can bring in that are very good backup quarterbacks that will do all those things. #1 being protect the damn football.
For sure.
I mean, it's quite obvious that Buechele was their second choice. And with him being out now for the year, that definitely does put the Bills in a bind, and they're going to have to really evaluate as we get closer and closer to cut day.
Yeah, more injuries coming through. Sophia says that she heard from Cover One that Quentin Morris may have a torn pec as far as that goes. Obviously, MVS with the neck sprain. That's got to be a concern. I mean, the guys are dropping like flies. Not that they're not, although Dawson Knox was held out on Thursday for a groin and an ankle and played. So you wonder how much of it might be precautionary, how much of it's not. It's got to be a concern.
Well, the thing is, if the one thing that the Bills have done, and if Quentin Morris did tear a pec, that's terrible because that's going to shelve him for a while. But we do have the luxury of having like Zach Davidson around, who's coming forward and coming on strong. But the thing is, when you have a team like the Bills right now, one of my comments from watching this game was, we've got team speed everywhere, especially on defense. We got a ton of speed on defense. A lot of times team speed doesn't come with your most big, rugged type dudes. So twitchy dudes get twitchy injuries. Twitchy injuries are pulled hamstrings, torn pecs, things like that, torn biceps. So it's just something you're going to have to try to work through. But I think it comes with the type of player that the Bills have right now, which they're incredibly twitchy.
Any big concern for you? Give me one big concern for you on this football team.
I just want to see a little bit more consistent. 2 areas. I want to see more consistent O-line play, which I think we'll see. I mean, there's too many technique mistakes. So that makes me feel good because technique mistakes are not ability mistakes. They're just things they need to clean up. And then I'm still very concerned about our defensive ends and our pass rush. We haven't seen Von Miller, obviously, but Epinesa was pretty much invisible this game. The guy that I really, really like, another draft pick, I thought Solomon showed some things. Now, obviously, when he goes on the field, he looks more – I mean, he's not a tall guy, but he's given NFL tackles fits because he's got the leverage on him right out of his stance because he's so short. But he's a hustle guy. He makes great effort. He had a couple of good rushes, got some quarterback hits and pressures, and he flies to the football. And it's going to be hard to – he's going to make the team. It's going to be hard to cut a guy like that.
Yeah, for sure. There's going to be – it's funny. We went into this like, oh, these are the obvious guys that are making it, like when we did our way too early roster predictions. And now there's a little bit of, maybe it's not going to be so easy.
It's just in the preseason, it's just hard to, like you said, when you're talking about the wide receivers, it's hard to evaluate some positions because of others' play.
Yeah.
But if you're a dog or if you're worth anything, you should flash at least a couple times. You should flash. Now, Andreessen flashed the whole damn game, but they're guys you should flash a little bit. I haven't seen AJ flash yet, and that concerns me.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and get us out of here, Jerry, if that's all right, because we're a little bit long in the tooth. This Saturday, the Buffalo Bills have their final preseason game at home against the Carolina Panthers. The Bills South, I guess, is what we would call them, right?
Yep.
It seems like every guy we bring in has had some stint in Carolina. Yes, so be prepared for that. We will have an overreaction post-game show again next Sunday. And then just so everybody knows from a programming note, the Overreaction post-game show will follow the game. So if there's a Thursday night game, it'll be Thursday night late, probably starting after the game, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. If it's a Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock game, it'll be at the normal time, 8 o'clock on Sunday. If it's a Monday game, Monday late. So just so everybody kind of knows that this show is not going to stay necessarily on Sundays. We might still have content on Sunday for you, just for us to get together and talk, and because we love doing this, it's a lot of fun. But so stay tuned for that next week, Sunday, 8 o'clock, the Overreaction post-game show. Tuesday, we got Mookie Hawkins on the beat this week. Excited about that. Wednesday, the Hump Day Hotline with myself and Spence. Thursday, the Big O Show. Do you want to preview the Big O Show, Jerry? What are you talking about this week?
We're going to talk about 3 or 4 areas that need to show up this week in the preseason. With the last game of the season, we got 3 spots that need to 3 to 4 spots that need to show up a little bit.
Awesome.
About that.
And then Friday, if the Walls could talk in Buffalo, and we are talking about and brewing up some extra content that'll be dropping probably mid-afternoons during the week, just as we have more stuff that we can talk about and get information out to you. But thank you guys so much for joining us for the Overreaction post-game show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe. For me, for Jerry, for John, Fina, for all of us here at Overreaction, we love you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.
Go Bills.